Welcome to your dose of Success Tonic for the day. I'm your host, Nathalie Pincham, and I'm delighted to welcome Carrie Majewski onto the podcast today. She's the founder and CEO of Women in Leadership Nexus and DoorD Ascension Framework. She's also the Vice President of Growth Strategy at the SQA Group. She's most recently been a featured keynote speaker at the Global Women Future Conference, Bryant Women's Conference, Girl Scouts of Southeastern New England Shine Ceremony, the Y Symposium, and AlwaysOn Leadership Symposium. So she's a busy lady. She's committed to affecting change and fueled by a desire to take action. And in addition to getting her energy from entrepreneurship and marketing, you'll find her dancing and exploring the ocean state and grabbing coffee with strangers who become friends. In fact, I think that could be her superpower. That's my personal opinion. So welcome, Carrie. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you so much, Natalie. It's an honor to be here and talking to you.
I'm just delighted that you were able to join me. Because I know that you and I really share this belief that getting more women into leadership positions is really vital to creating positive change. And we both share this desire to help accomplished women step into bold new levels of leadership presence and visibility and business success. So I'm very excited to chat and compare notes with you.
I love what you just said, Natalie, about the bold visions. I know it's something we're going to talk about, but I'm excited by where we're headed as just like a society and a business construct. And I love that you're talking and shedding light on what can leadership look like, what can it feel like, and how do we just create space for more greatness for each of us to come forward.
Yes. It's so empowering when we start to think about these things and start to just take ownership of things in a different way. So I was wondering, you must meet a lot of amazing people through all the things that you do and all the different avenues that you have open in your life right now. So from all the people that you come across, do you hear about different versions of success from them? And has that shifted your definition of success in any way?
That's a great question to start with. I'm very interested right now in where did definitions come from, who created them, who wrote them? Are we, upholding words and phraseology that was created eons ago? And what parts of these definitions do we still believe and hold true for ourselves, and which do we need to break up with? So I love the notion of taking words, whether it's success or it's growth or it's velocity, and just figuring out what is your actual definition for that word, and being willing to ask ourselves, is this a definition that I created? Did my past version create it? Did my future version create it, right? Did society create it? Because so often I think we're still holding ourselves to benchmarks and expectations that we did not set. They were just, learned behaviors. They were systemic constructs that became ingrained in us. So it's been, I think, empowering and exciting to be in conversation and community with so many people now that are looking at words and words like success, as we said, and just thinking, how do I make this more nuanced and more true to my authentic version? Because success for everybody is not the same, right? Like, it's not just climbing to C-suite or making a certain amount of money or running your own business. Sometimes success for someone is having time to do their passions and their hobbies. So that's been my favorite part of these conversations, is asking people, how are you actually defining that word? Is it something you're looking to re-explore and re-examine, and then opening up a really rich dialogue about where we could move the conversation, the definition towards.
Yes. Well, as you know, I'm pretty passionate about the subject too, since I started a whole podcast around it. But I do think that those conversations, I pretty much start most of my coaching sessions with my clients around, what does success look like for this session, but also, bigger picture, because I think having that definition clear in your mind, as opposed to having it as a received idea that we've never sort of questioned or really dug into, can just, having that difference of perspective is just so clarifying. So clarifying.
It is. I remember when I was growing the Women in Leadership Nexus, and that's how our worlds, of course, collided, thankfully. But remember, it's turning 7 now, and in some ways it feels like it's been a year, and others it feels like it's been quite some time. But I always got asked every year, like, how have you grown it? And what does growth look like for you? And for so
Yeah.
many people, growth is a marker of metrics, and many times vanity metrics at that. Like it's tied
Mhm.
to year over year, the numbers rising, the numbers getting bigger, whatever it is. And I
Yeah.
remember that was my first time of experimenting and dancing with new age definitions. And for me, growth was intimacy, it was close knittedness. I wanted a
Yes.
community of women that could just stay very open and expansive to new ideas and new thoughts, but I never wanted to be the popular organization. I always would say, I want to be influential and I want to be impactful, but I don't care about popularity. So I think that as we're starting to think about all of these words that are on our mind right now,
Mhm.
again, it allows you to shift into the driver's seat to just make sure you're following your path. And again, not the path that someone else told you were supposed to be on. And that feels inspired, I think, for all of us as humans when we
Mhm.
get to that realization.
Yes, absolutely. And one of the things I find really fascinating and a really interesting topic is this intersection between our definition of success and our ability to define leadership for ourselves and for others. And so I'm wondering if you could speak to that. How would you define that intersection
Mm.
based on the work that you do?
It's a great question. It changes. I
Yes,
feel
yeah,
every month I'm defining and integrating my worlds differently. Success sometimes, especially in years past, used to look a whole lot like achievement
right,
and
exactly.
winning things, being featured in things, getting to career markers that were super important. And I've been kind of understanding my own definition of success right now, which feels a little bit more quiet for me and a little bit more inward, which has been really new. It's a new space for me to step into, but I love thinking about the leadership and success intersections and granting ourselves just permission and grace to say that it gets to change over and over again, and that
Mm,
the way we lead, whether it's our communities, our families, our places of work, we can inhabit new styles and new techniques whenever we're so called and so moved. So I think for the first time in my life, and it's not easy, I'm definitely like a recovering people pleaser and perfectionist and all those terrible things that we battle. But for the first time, I'm trying to just grant myself a little bit of just time to slow down, to really reflect, to make sure that anything that I'm chasing are things that still feel true and still set my soul on fire,
mm,
and that
mm,
I'm willing to walk away from that which no longer serves me, even if it means deviating from past patterns and behaviors that I was so accustomed to.
yeah, yeah, and that can be a hard conversation to have with ourselves, right?
Yeah.
It's really hard to let things go.
Yeah.
Um, and I really loved coming to talk at the event that you hosted on imperfect leadership and hearing the other speakers bring the really amazing stories as well. Because, at times I know that we often feel like we don't measure up to our vision, our idea of leadership. And even though, deep down, we know we have so much more to share. And, we're very accomplished, in all our different ways, but we still, even the most accomplished, struggle with the courage to step into visibility and share our voices. Um, so I'm wondering, what advice would you have for someone who's feeling that way? Like they have something big that they want to share, but they're not quite there yet.
It's oh, that's an exciting time, first of all, if you're feeling that, if
Yeah.
your body, mind, and spirit is kind of getting you there. I think the
Yes.
faster we start to lean into the beauty of imperfection, it's such a great journey that you can be on. I loved that series. I remember women
Yes.
calling into vision the things that they had never granted themselves permission to do. So for some women, it was wearing, really large earrings on a Zoom call. And for others, it was being okay being 5 minutes late to a meeting if that's what they needed for the day. And to me, this is all just about normalizing the humanness that each of us has
Yes.
and the fears, as you said, and the reality that despite what any public perception or image says, we all battle insecurities and doubts and
Mm,
the unknowns and the uncertainty. And I think something that can be just really important to remember is all of these times that we felt less than, or we've battled our own feelings of, should I be here? Is this space the right space for me to occupy? Should I be saying yes? we've gotten past those moments and we channeled our adventure zone and we remembered the version of us that had said yes to things that were exciting and daring and divine.
Mm.
And so I think it's okay to normalize the feelings of the fear and the uncertainty, but chase the adventure first and foremost if you're ready for it. And then just have amazing humans around you. I'm a huge fan of your circle of influence, and the people you spend all of your time with matter. And let's be really judicious and careful at who you invite into that space energetically and intellectually, to make sure that as you're eyeing your next big moves, you have people around you that will remind you of your greatness and all the times that you've been able to fight for that which you want, and will still give you space to say, I'm scared and I'm terrified and I have no idea how I'm going to do it, because we're all there. We're all human.
Yes, exactly. I think that's such a magic thing, that, having support and being able to show up even when you're terrified, and having the people just to be like, it's okay, we're all terrified.
Yeah.
It's okay.
I remember very recently, so one of my most recent DoorD cohorts, it's a leadership cohort program that I run, just is in now like week 6 of their program. And I remember getting an email from one of my participants who had just started. She was on week 2, and she had done, all her pre-research before the cohort kicked off to see who were the women in her cohort and what had they accomplished and what were their professional identities. And she in her own right is so accomplished, right? And on paper, she has all the things that we all admire and aspire. And she sent me a note and said, I've got to be honest, I was so nervous to be in space with these women and thinking I don't hold a candle to them, and how am I here? And then in that first 60 minutes of getting to know her cohort, she realized, wow, there is still this, prevailing feeling that we all have. And of course, we have different experiences, but there's still prevailing things that weave us together of the doubt and the fear and the unknown. So I was just reminded by her note that each of us experiences this. It's not something that we need to feel bad about. It's super normal. And that anyone that we think has it all together, they still have their own things that they're facing. And I think there's a comfortability in that, and in acknowledging that we can have these conversations and admit when something's been a little bit intense for us. It's okay.
Yes, I love that. I love that this is your approach of normalizing these kinds of conversations and opening up the space for people to feel like, yeah, it's okay. And it's okay to have that day when you need the extra 5 minutes to pull yourself together for the meeting, and all of these things, like bringing humanity back into the workplace.
So well said. Yes.
So you launched your DoorD methodology in 2021. I remember when you did, and I was so excited. It was just such a brilliant concept. So tell us about what is DoorD and why you believe in women in particular needing to find and choose their DoorD.
Yes, I want a world of DoorDs. I love this question. Thank you so much for asking it. So the way I kind of think about life is we constantly find ourselves at fork in the road moments where, there's door A, there's door B. Sometimes there's a door C, but it's never quite the thing that sets our soul on fire. So what I try to really get into people's minds and their belief system is that there is this invisible floating door that is literally around you at any moment in time, kind of beckoning you into this next chapter or next decision or next choice that is so soul aligned. And for me, really early on in my career, I started seeing these unconventional doors everywhere I looked at fork in the roads. And I was never interested in kind of the stay the course door or the, do something new door. I was actually interested in the invisible door, what I refer to as door D, which is the thing that feels so tied to your heart and your values and this version of you that you want to live and breathe into for your career, your personal life, whatever's motivating you at that time. But the reality is the world has been designed to help us only see door A's and door B's and the convention. And we have to unlearn that. We have to unlearn the conventional pathways, the systems that created the traditional doors in the first place, to even see the invisible option and to see that there is oftentimes another version of whether it's our leadership, our business, our narrative that we tell the world, that is waiting for us. Like the door is right there and it wants you to open it, but we haven't done it before. It's divine, it's dreamy, it's different, right? It's all these things that just, they light us up, but yet they also feel a little bit less familial to us. So my DoorD concept is really about helping women have the tools, the strategies, and the mindset to always be able to see their invisible door when they're at fork in the road moments. And for me, a lot of what I'm seeing in the cohort and the doors that they're opening, it's amazing because they're DoorDing things that I didn't think that they were going to DoorD. They're DoorDing how they want to show up as a first-time leader of people, or they're DoorDing how they want to negotiate salary in a way that feels wildly daring and different, or they're DoorDing their business by launching, 3 service offerings at the same time in a new market that they never thought they would be, launching into. So the container and the cohort is really about giving space for us to say out loud the things that don't even yet make sense to us, but yet they are career decisions that are just starting to get that butterfly inside of us, flapping the wings. And that by talking about it and daydreaming and ideating and saying out loud that which you actually want, you start to make it more actionable and able to execute against that vision. So it's been so great. I've been, this is the 4th cohort now. So there's like 33 DoorDers out in the world DoorDing their way through life. And I'm just excited that we're entering this future of work movement where we can choose the different pathway and the pathway that most speaks to the version of us that we want to be.
I think this is just so revolutionary in a way, right? It's really kind of creating a whole new paradigm for work and what business should look like and what it looks like to show up in your career. And I know that that's something that you talk about as a speaker and as part of DoorD. And so I'd love to sort of ask you to share a bit about what your vision is for the career pathways of tomorrow. What do those look like?
Yeah, I'm such a fan of the futures movement. One of the things that I found most interesting as I started to study it is they put the emphasis on the S in futures, meaning there is no singular future, and that we are very much co-creating a futures work, a futures industry, whatever the thing is. And this has been probably one of my motivating drivers recently, is studying the futures movement and what do our industries look like decades from now? What do our professions look like, right? Like, how are we collaborating and elevating new thoughts? And we're in this period of disruptive thinking. So it's a really exciting time to choose to believe that we can break it all apart. We can build anew. We can take pathways that maybe years ago people would have never understood.
Absolutely.
So for me, a big component of the futures movement is curating a career by choice versus by circumstance, and making sure that whatever your curation looks like, whether you want to run your own business and work for somebody else's, which is what I do, right? Or you want to own 5 of your own businesses, or, you want to switch industries. Like maybe you've been in marketing for 20 years and you want to be an accountant. It's just understanding that we can. This is a era that we're in of choice and intention and design, but it's about being brave enough to say out loud what you want in a world that wants you boxed in, and in a world that wanted to categorize you and keep you on a linear path. So I see a future world where people can quit corporate, go off and do their own thing, and come back and like no one cares. Or, they can have career optionality where they decide they want to work for many companies to diversify the way that they get their stimulation. So I'm excited by this kind of era where A, say out loud the thing you want, especially when no one understands it. B, build your action plan for advocating for it, negotiating it, demanding it for yourself. And then C, constantly re-examining and recalibrating, did my career curation, does it still work? Do I need to amend it? Do I need to adjust it? Because it's a continuum. You get to always choose anew anytime that you want.
Yes, yes, yes. I definitely have these conversations often with my clients as well. And I love hearing it from you, from your perspective and from, your experience, because I do think that it is so freeing, so empowering to think, just because I've done this thing for 25 years doesn't mean I have to do it for another 20 years. I can do something completely different, and it's okay. And
it is okay.
And I do think that one of the ways we do get so boxed in, people just expect you just to do that one thing, that awful question that you get when you go to an event, and it's like, so what do you do? What's that
Oh,
one thing that you do?
I'm terrible with this question now, Natalie. When I get asked it, because I hate it so much, I
Yeah.
actually freeze up and I get really awkward and weird, and that's the imperfect leadership. It's totally okay.
Yes.
But I'm always like, I don't know what to do with this question. It feels so archaic and so not connected to the world
Yes.
we're in. And I wanted to add to something you said because it's so important that, we grew up in a world, and I've been reading a lot about this concept of forevering.
Mm.
And we're a byproduct of this notion of forevering. So having a forever place you live, a forever career that you choose, a forever partner that you're with. Like
Mhm.
this whole notion of you can never change your mind and you can never break up with something. It's been so deeply ingrained. And again, it was ingrained to keep the systems upheld. And it was
Yeah.
by design. This was not by,
Yes.
happenstance that we got
Yeah.
here. So what happens is anytime we change our mind or we get courageous to want to be introspective, we are confronted with our own relationship with forevering and what society told us forevering should look like. So it's been really interesting to have conversations about this, whether again we forever with even our best friends from high school that we think still have to be our best friends, and how do we start to realize that changing our mind or changing our interests or our hobbies is very normal and we're in a constant season of evolution, and it's about again identifying what we need now, and then again having the courage to say I'm going to go fight for it even when the world wants me to stay in this one box they put me in.
Exactly. Yes, 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 yes. I think we need to just, you know, get out of these boxes. I think
Yes.
it's so, so important. We have so much more to give
Mm-hmm.
than we can when we're in that little box. So
Exactly.
let's move beyond those limits. So I'm wondering if you have read a book recently or come across a resource recently that you love and would recommend to anyone around all these things we've been talking about.
Mm. So it's so top of mind because I just got out of
Okay.
an amazing
Yeah.
conversation with someone about this today. So
Great.
it's very present. I'm a really big fan of the Group's social styles concept. It's all about how we communicate and understanding our different communication styles and
Mm.
preferences. And since I love talking to people all the time, I'm just fascinated by how we all receive information differently. And what they really talk about is it's important to know where we sit and how we naturally receive and give out information, but it's equally important, if not more important, to know how the person on the other side receives and absorbs information. So for anyone who's a fan of DISC or Myers-Briggs, it's a similar construct, not a similar concept, in that there's 4 quadrants, and it's very
Mhm.
much about figuring out your people responsiveness style and your assertiveness style. But unlike DISC or Myers-Briggs, what I find really powerful is you can almost tell somebody's social style within minutes of meeting them, just
Ooh.
in terms of how they write their emails, in terms of how they set agendas for meetings, or they call you on the phone. Like there's these really cool telltale signs where you can almost always know how that person prefers to communicate in their default style. And in a world where there's so much misunderstanding and miscommunication right now, I
Absolutely.
found myself coming back to this model, which is interesting because I learned about it over a decade ago, but I'm finding it's more relevant now than even maybe 10 years ago because we're having more radical and
Yeah.
honest and vulnerable conversations. So anyone who loves talking and knowing people, I definitely suggest checking it out.
Okay, well, that's totally up my street.
Oh, good.
I'm checking it out as soon as we wrap up this conversation.
Perfect.
Thank you. Thank
Perfect.
you, Carrie.
Yes, of course.
Okay, so one final question. I know that you have so much going on in your world. So, what's coming up for you in the next few months?
Yeah, well, I'm so excited because the timing is really amazing in that my women's organization has just announced that we are commissioning a report talking to hundreds of women over America to co-create new KPIs for how to measure career advancement for women in the workplace. It is something I am so excited about. I have an amazing ability to really bring together these women that I so greatly admire, which is the coolest part, to just think about how do we revolutionize KPIing and metrics and calibration,
Mhm.
because so much of how we're measuring career advancement is just check boxes and vanity based and singularly dimensioned. So I'm going to be talking to so many women. This is going to be my communication happiness factor on, on fire right now. And just really sitting down with women to say, what are we not measuring that we should? And how do we even change the definition? This goes back to the first question you asked me, Nathalie, of what does career advancement even mean? Because most likely we're still holding it towards an old definition that was set hundreds of years ago. So this report is something I've been dreaming about and have been excited about, and now it's a reality. So that's going to be coming out in the next few weeks. And I can't wait to just kind of share with the world that we have to be willing to look at these just fundamental business concepts in a totally different way, especially when the metrics tell a really bleak story of what's happening with career advancement for women. So it's going to be an exciting few weeks. I absolutely can't wait for this.
I am so excited as well. I was just jumping up and down when I read your email about it.
Yes. Yes. So if anyone's watching this or listening to this and like the date has passed, I don't care. Reach out to me because I still want to talk and get all your thoughts about the KPIs.
Oh, yes, definitely. So tell listeners where they can find you online.
Yes, I love connecting on LinkedIn. So give me a follow there. Send me a note. We can get a virtual coffee. I always love connecting with people through that platform. And then you can check out my women's organization, wilnexus.com. We are always running, whether it's leadership cohorts like DoorD or retreats or reports like this. So if you are passionate about just changing the way women are driving their career velocity, drop me a note, reach out to me, and I would love to know about what is motivating you right now.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you, Carrie, for being here. And
this was a delight, Nathalie. I love the work you're doing. I was so excited about this conversation. So thank you so much. It's been amazing to be here.
Oh, it's been such a pleasure getting to chat to you and hear about all of the things that you're working on. And I want to just thank everyone who's listening and sharing this conversation with me and Carrie today. And I hope everyone has a great week. Did you hear? I've just opened the doors to a very special challenge for you to help you become more confident about being visible. So this is a 30-day challenge where I'm inviting you to come along with me to show up online every day for 30 days. So I'm inviting you to come along with me as I do it. And I'm going to make it as fun as I can. And it's going to be all about elevating our energy. So for all of us doing this challenge, I believe it's going to be our best month yet. So if you want to join us, head on over to storytonic.co/visible, and I cannot wait to see you inside.